So the recording has started. Good morning, Arandia. How are you? Good morning, Arandia. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good. Thank you. Give me one second. Close my door here. Okay. I'm good. I got my camera today. I've been trying to get those pictures, and my settings are in manual.
Yes.
But I took pictures outside, inside, and they're so dark. And I've been playing touching buttons, so I don't know what I did wrong.
So it sounds like you're not balancing your light meter. You're not putting the scale right in the middle. So on the settings I gave you on your handout, I gave you an f-stop, but you had to find the shutter speed that would work. And then I gave you a shutter speed, but you had to find the f-stop that would work.
Okay. Okay, I know I'm doing something wrong.
Yes.
But I've been playing with the cameras, like what I'm doing wrong, what I pushed. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave you one number and you had to find the other number.
Oh, okay.
So you've got to watch that scale down on the bottom of the viewfinder.
Okay, I look at it. I look at it.
Okay.
And I have a class with you tonight. I'm so
I know.
excited.
I see you tonight. I get to see you in person.
Yay.
Yeah, we have a holiday lights photography class tonight in the Woodlands. So we go out and walk the streets and photograph the holiday lights.
Okay.
We've got just a minute or so before class begins. Any questions? So we covered R&D or Chris?
I have a lot of questions. I've been taking pictures for a little while, but like you say, just on manual or just touching buttons, but never. I've been doing a lot of tutorials, but I love it. I've been doing it with family members here and there. When I just got the new camera last year, my Canon, and I also got my sister. She gave me the Mark.
Yeah,
I haven't used it at all. That camera is something else.
It's a beautiful camera. Yeah,
it is a beautiful camera. Yeah, I only got I had to buy the lens, but the lens is so expensive. So I got the little tiny one that fixed to that camera. So that's my next project. Start learning how to use it.
Good. Good, because it's a really nice camera.
It is.
Yeah. And then I saw Morgan briefly, and then she bugged out. There she is. Hey, Morgan, how are you?
Hey, good. How are y'all?
Good, 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 good. Okay, my clock is saying 10 o'clock, and so I am going to go ahead and begin. Thank you all very much for coming back. This is class 2 of basic photography. And as we go through homework, you can share your experiences on how you did or what you found worked or what didn't work. So feel free to ask questions. Okay, Joshua, you sent in your homework. And as I told you, you absolutely, completely aced this one. You did well. So this is your 4.5. So I gave you the f-stop of 4.5, and then you found the shutter speed that balanced. You want to give us any lessons you learned or problems you had before I go through your photos?
What I always get confused was the shutter and the aperture.
That's me.
Yeah. Now remember, the shutter stops motion or blurs motion, and the aperture controls how much is in focus and how much is not in focus. And most of the time, the aperture is in a decimal number where the shutter speed is a fraction. So if that helps you any.
I don't see it, Miss Kathy. I'm still confused there, how to get there. It is on 5.6.
Right.
Okay, so where I see the other number.
Look through the viewfinder, push your button halfway down. Push your button halfway down, and your other number is right next to the 5.6. That's your
That's-
shutter speed.
Because I have 125 and then 5.6.
Yeah, 125 is your shutter speed and 5.6 is your f-stop. Exactly.
Okay.
And on that camera, Arundira, you're on the 90 right now, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Your index finger on your right hand controls your shutter speed, and your thumb on the big dial on the back controls your f-stop.
Okay.
So that's how you change those two numbers, but the scale goes right in the middle.
Got it. 280,
Yeah.
100. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But the
Gotcha.
scale goes right in the middle. So Joshua, with this one, you look at it and you see all the colors look great. The refrigerator in the background. Yeah. Go ahead.
Blurred.
Yeah, the
The background
refrigerator.
blurred.
Yep. And then as you go through, now watch, Arundira, watch. So as you go to 5.6, then Joshua, you kept the exposure. So the light on the little character and the kitchen is exactly the same. The only thing that's changing is a little bit more depth of field. And then here's your 6.3. You lost focus on the little character just a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll happen. But you got focus back again for your 7. And notice that the magnets on the refrigerator are getting a little bit more in focus. And then I think here you are. Yeah, there you are at 8. So the magnets are getting a little bit more in focus, but notice we haven't changed the exposure. The exposure, the light is exactly the same. And that's perfect. That's how I know you balanced your light meter every single time. And then here we got a little bit more. We can almost read what's on your refrigerator magnet collection. And then we get F22, and now we can read the refrigerator magnets. So F22, and you notice that looking at the counter right here, we can see the counter all the way to the back is in pretty good focus. And then your character, you maintained your focus on that character except that one little time. So you did a great job on this one. And so you see how the light didn't change. The light stayed exactly the same. So you have, just a reminder, you have lots of opportunities or options of where you can balance your light meter, but which one you choose depends on what you want your picture to look like. Comments on that one, Joshua?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. And then here you are with your, you didn't go outside and try the water in the faucet, huh?
It was too cold.
It's just too cold. I noticed several of you all did the kitchen faucet. You opted for the kitchen faucet. So here you are at 2/50th of a second at 3.5. And notice once again that background is out of focus, that 3.5. But then you didn't get a real tight focus on your water faucet. Yeah. And then here, so this is your fastest shutter speed on your water. And then this would be your 125, still not a real tight focus on that water. And then this is your 60, but notice that you got a much better focus on your water now on the faucet itself. And then the water still has a nice defined stream on it at the 60. And then here it's going to 30 and you got your focus back, but we're not changing the exposure. And then here we go again, but the water is definitely starting to blur out just a little bit. And then here's another one, water's blurring out pretty good. And then there's another one, water's blurring out pretty good. Now we can see that background. So that's telling us you're in that 16 or 22 range because we can see the background. And then I think that, yeah, this is your last one. So this is your half second. So you probably just saw 2 through the viewfinder at F22. And then, your water is nice and blurred, but we can see much more of the detail in the background. Lost your focus just again on that one. So everybody be sure when you're focusing that you put that focus point on something that's solid. If you try to focus on the water, then it'll throw the camera off because it's moving. So be sure that you focus on something that's solid. So good job. Comments, Joshua, on your homework?
No. It was a bit difficult though for the first time.
Yeah. But did it make sense?
Yeah, it did make sense.
Good. Okay. Comments from anybody else on Joshua's homework?
Can we see his fast shutter speed again? The fastest one?
Right there. But you can kind of see some bubbles in there, but I don't know if you all can. But also, since there's not a good focus point on the water faucet, then it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't illustrate as fast as 2/50th of a second would be. But you can definitely see it on the f-stop. I mean, yeah, on the f-stop. There we go. Okay, Morgan, here's yours. Comments on your homework.
It did take a bit, because again, I did do it in the evening, so it made it a lot harder. And so there wasn't, I mean, I do have some windows in my house, but, so it did take me a lot longer. I probably should have done it in the daytime with the natural light, that would have made it a lot easier, but
that's when you did it.
yes, it is.
That's how it is. Exactly. So this is your 5.6, and you set this up well, just like Joshua did, in that, you know, we've got something in the background that we can see. So now you know how to blur the Christmas lights. So you've learned that one in your homework assignment.
And that's hard. That's really hard.
But now you know how to do it. So, you know, you put the cat or the kid right in, you know, 10 or 15 feet away, and you can see that. This is another one where you didn't get your focus point exactly where it should have been. So you notice that the present is just a little on the soft side.
Okay.
And I did challenge you on this assignment because I asked you to focus as close as you could. And sometimes we get a little closer than we should. We should back off just a little bit so we make sure that we definitely are in the focus range.
So
And
I should have personally backed up?
yeah, you
Okay.
should have backed up just a little bit more. And make a note on everybody's camera that when you're looking through your viewfinder, you get one color on your square, your focus square, when you're in focus, and you get another color when you're not in focus. So your cannons, so it's usually an orange square if you're not in focus, and it's a blue square if you are in focus. But on the other hand, it's a very tiny square. So this is something that one more thing you got to look at, and that'll tell you whether you definitely are in focus or not. There also is a beep that you can turn on that tells you you're in focus. So when you focused on, Morgan, did you focus on the package or the ribbon?
I guess really both of them.
Both of them, because there's only one thing you can focus on. Remember that. So wherever you put
So
your
then I
focus-
guess I really did do the package itself, not really the
Okay.
bow.
Okay, so the package, there is a beep you can turn on your camera to tell you that you're in focus. Drives me crazy. And if somebody's traveling with me for 10 days, I eventually ask them to turn it off. But it's not a bad thing to use in the beginning, so you know that you are in focus, or it's found something to focus on anyway. Okay, so this is your 5.6, and now we're moving through the f-stop. So watch that Christmas tree back there. And then here you wobble just a little bit, because remember, you got a really slow shutter speed going on here because you're inside. And that's why this isn't coming out real nice and clear. And then next picture, come on. There you go. Next picture, wobble just a little bit again, but we're seeing more detail in the back. And then here you are all the way at your f22. And once again, you just don't have a real solid focus on that package. And then, but yeah, we can see now the Christmas trees coming into more detail. So I think you did a good job. And notice also that there's no light change through there. So that means your exposure is right. You balanced your light meter. So if I'm not
And I think
seeing any light,
Kathy, I will say that it sent you some of the ones that are messed up. I didn't mean to send all of those. So
okay, that's okay. I mean, they give us stuff to talk about.
yeah, that's true.
Yes, they give us stuff to talk about. There we go. And then here's your last one on that. And then this is yours too, Morgan, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And this I have to point out. Notice that you are at ISO 4000. So that tells me that you haven't moved your ISO to 100. You still have it on auto. So if you look on the back of your camera, top on the display panel on the back, top right-hand corner, that's where your ISO is.
I thought we were supposed to change that too, to make it, because it was so dark if I didn't. Okay.
No, and because you should have been on a tripod, so it still would have been really dark. Were you on tripod or just trying to hold it?
I had it set up on the counter.
On the counter. Okay. Yeah. If you set it on the counter, then we shouldn't have had to raise the ISO, especially to 4,000.
Okay. Because I put it back on 100 afterwards.
Okay.
So
Super. That's good. That's good. But it's blurry. But notice that you can see the bubbles in the aeration of her water faucet. And so we got a lot of bubbles going on in there, which means, and that's that 8,000th of a second shutter speed. See, that's just like, whoa, way too much for indoor photography. And then going through, whoops, there we go. And then 3,200 ISO. So you're still balancing your light meter, though ISO is just way, way, way too high. I see what you were doing now. I got it, Morgan. So I got it.
okay.
Yeah, I understand what you were doing because you were inside and it's fairly dark. And then here we go. You can still see the bubbles in the aeration, but the focus point, this would be really hard for the camera to focus on. The stream of water, that would be very, very difficult. So like Joshua, you probably should have focused on the faucet head, because that's why we're not getting too much focus. And I could see some focus area here. You can see your depth of field over here. So you can see it on the edge of the sink.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're still getting that balance there. And then here, those bubbles are starting and, and it's overexposing a bit too. I noticed on your settings that you were on center weighted light meter and not evaluative light meter. Would you double check that on the back of your camera?
Uh-huh.
So that should be, third row down. And when I opened your picture up, it said you were on center weighted light meter and not your evaluative light meter. Correct?
Trying to find it. Sorry, Kathy.
That's okay. It's like third row down, middle of the third row.
It's on the camera one, right?
Uh-huh. No, it's just on your display panel on the back. Push your info button 3 times until you get your display panel.
Uh-huh.
I'll show you in just a second.
Okay.
I've got a back of a camera. And then there we go. Now, see, now there's no bubbles anymore. So we've got just this stream of water coming down, stream of water coming down, stream of water coming down, but you've maintained your exposure throughout the whole thing. And so now we're getting, that stream of water coming all the way down.
So I should have just stayed in iOS 100 the whole time.
You should have, because what's happening is you were changing because you stayed at F4, notice the entire time. So the entire time your depth of field never changed. So you were raising your ISO to get your balance in your light meter instead of changing your f-stop and your shutter speed.
Okay.
Okay. But you maintained your balance. So, you did it in a different way, but you maintained your light balance. And then you see now that we've gone from bubbles in the water to no bubbles in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then here's Carol. Oh, Morgan, before we leave you, any comments about doing your homework?
No, no, ma'am.
No, except don't do them in the house where it's dark, right?
Yes, very hard.
And Carol, here's yours. And on yours, you're going to notice also that you've maintained your light balance all the way through. So, we get the light, but the problem is we're too far away from the sprinkler to see anything. And this is a common problem that we have as photographers, is we are looking through our viewfinder and we know what we're looking at, this little sprinkler right here, but our viewer is looking at all of this stuff and has no idea what in the heck we're looking at.
Right, but I just didn't want to get wet, so I should have turned
I know.
the sprinkler down, I guess.
So you should have taken the sprinkler off the hose and put the hose on a fence post or something.
Okay.
So then you could have done that. I figured that's what you didn't want to do. You didn't want to get wet in the sprinkler. Yeah. So we just need to put that hose up somehow in the outside. So this is 250 at f4.5. And you notice when you're focused this far away, that we really can't see any change in the depth of field. So once you start focusing a long way away, we don't see much change in the depth of field. So notice this is that as we go from the 254.5, we can't see the sprinkler too well, to the 125th, and then this is probably a 5.6, to the 60th at 7.1 or something like that. You see how we can't see any change in the depth of field. And that's because we're focused further away. So when we focus a long way away, we don't notice it as much. But you're maintaining your color all the way through. So that means you're balancing your light meter. We got some splashes going on in the water right here. So we can see that we've got some movement. And then here we go. We got splashes in the water once again. And here we go again. We're watching those cows move around in the back. And then here we go again. And then this is where we finally get to F20 right here. So if we could look closer, we would see that we had some blur going on in the water. We got some blur right in here in where the water's hitting the pond. So we don't notice it as much. Go back to the 125th, and you'll notice that we could see the water hitting the pond. But you maintained your light all the way through. So you did a good job on that one. And then here you are on your I think you started at F4, right, Carol?
Yes.
Yeah. And you notice back in here, we got, long distance away, and definitely everything back in there is nice and out of focus. And then we've got two different areas that we can watch. This one's fun because we got a big area out here that's out of focus. And then we got an area that's closer. So we can watch these two as you change your f-stop. So here you go. And then here you go on your next f-stop. This should have been 5.6. And then we're going into the 6 something and the 7 something. And then going over, now watch the walls now getting in focus. So the depth of field is now going between your little Christmas tree and the wall. And then going all the way back to where now we can finally at F22 start seeing those cows, not totally in focus, but we can start seeing them in more detail. But you kept your light the entire time. So once again, you did exactly what you should have. You were balancing your light meter each time as you went through there. Comments on how this was, or how hard it was, or how easy it was? Or did it make sense?
It made sense.
Good. Good. Okay, questions for anybody on your homework? No, now that you've seen everybody else's? Yeah, okay, good. Now, right here, Morgan, is the light meter button right there. That's the icon for your light meter. Right here. And that's the icon that you should have on the back of your camera. Is that what you've got?
No, I don't have that. Maybe
Okay.
that's why.
Press your Q button and toggle over to there and punch that button and go to the one that looks like this.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Good, 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 good. Because you had a different light meter set. So that was the old-fashioned light meter as opposed to the evaluative light meter. All of you all are Canon users. And so this is the light meter that you should have set right here. And then if this ISO ever goes to auto, because it's the last thing on the scale, if you rotate it, if it ever goes to auto, then it just starts raising and lowering the ISO to keep you in balance. And there are times when you're going to want to use that, but we don't want to use that very often. And then the exposure compensation, Arindira, you have this plus minus button on your camera, right? Nobody else has the plus minus button on their cameras?
Plus, minus. Yes, I do have it.
You do have it on the top? Nobody else has it, right? Joshua, I know you don't have it. Carol, you don't have it. Morgan, you don't have it. No, okay. So Arindira, you want to watch this button and make sure that it's when you push it, that it's set to 0, 0, because this is a button you can mistakenly push on that camera that you own, and it will permanently underexpose your light meter or permanently overexpose your light meter until you re-push it. So in the event that you ever see your light meter going negative or positive and you can't change it. It won't let you go to right in the middle for one reason or the other. Arandira, it's this button on your camera. Everybody else on your cameras, it's in your menu, exposure compensation in your red menu. So just in case you notice that, none of you all complained about it. So I think you were okay. Okay, so to lesson 2. So anybody have any questions about the backside of your cameras that we talked about last time? Anybody have any questions about any buttons that you all noticed that didn't turn out looking like you all wanted them?
I had a question.
Yeah,
So like this camera has that ISO button, which mine doesn't. So you have to go in the menu.
Correct.
I believe.
yes.
And then do you want us on, at the very end of class, you talked about changing your ISO to compensate,
Mhm.
we needed more light. In my menu, I think I could set it between 100 and some big number. Do you want it there or do you want it set permanently at 100?
You want to set it permanently at 100, except, it's like it's overcast, or when Morgan was doing her photography inside. If there's a shutter speed you definitely want, so, you're outside and the dog's doing something really cool and you want to be able on an overcast day to photograph it, then that's when you would resort to your ISO. But otherwise, you're going to keep that ISO low so that we can get the best quality on our photographs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miss
But
Kathy,
yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
On these 2 buttons that I'm pushing, it says manual select spot AF. What is all those little dots? What that means? Or when I point it, it moves to the side, to the center, to the right, left, to the center.
So-
what that means?
So that's your focus point, this button right
That's-
here that we talked
Yeah.
about last time in class. When you
Okay.
punch that, you have a pattern that you can move your focus point around in, but you move your focus point with your thumb using your toggle right there, and you move it to wherever your subject is.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
So like that little toy that Joshua was photographing, that focus point should have stayed right on that toy's face the entire time.
Okay.
Or Morgan's Christmas gift, it should have stayed right on that Christmas gift the entire time. Any other questions on the backs of your cameras, settings on the backs of your cameras?
Well, I'm still I don't know what I did, Miss Kathy. It's all my pictures are dark. If I can be outside, can be inside. Any idea what?
So
what
if you pick your camera up right now and you balance your light meter with an f5.6, so put f5.6 as your f-stop.
That's what it is.
Okay, now look through your camera, point it at the wall or at the picture, and
Okay.
now rotate your shutter speed until the scale goes right in the middle.
My scale is not moving.
Okay, but it should be something like a 15th of a second or an 1/8 of a second or a 1/4 of a second because you're in a room. So it should be a slow shutter speed. What'd you get, Carol?
I'm still getting there.
Okay,
1/4.
1/4 of a second, good. Arandira, do it again. So you should be like in a 1/4 or a 1/2 or an 1/8 or something like that.
My scale's not moving, so
Well, rotate the dial the other direction because the scale is probably jammed up against the side. Keep rotating your dial one direction or the other until it starts moving. And you're looking for a shutter speed that's in the slow range, like a 20th. Got it?
Let me see.
Take the picture.
There you go. That
Okay,
was the problem.
that's called balancing the light meter. So you don't take the picture until that scale goes right in the middle.
In the middle.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay, I got
Okay,
it now.
that's why
It
your
wasn't
pictures were
moving
black.
at all.
Yes,
Okay.
that's why your pictures were black. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Carol, makes sense? Morgan makes
ma'am.
sense? Joshua makes sense? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So let's keep going. There are some settings on the back of your camera that I asked you to set in that preliminary homework assignment for you. And you all are all Canons. Whoa, I'm sorry. You all are all Canons. And so I want you all to be set on AI servo or servo. So this is on the back display panel of your camera. And I want you to be set on the servo or the AI servo. You R's and RPs, it's now called servo. Joshua and Arandaria, it's still called AI servo on the back of your camera. Now, what AI servo does or servo does is if you keep your finger halfway down on the shutter button, that's the front button where your index finger is. If you keep your finger halfway down on that shutter button, the camera will constantly be going back and forth and focusing on the subject. It'll constantly be retouching on the subject. So you'll actually kind of feel it, go back and forth. If you're on an AI servo, then if you focus on, let's say, a child, and the child gently moves, AI servo will go back and refocus on the child. If you move, AI servo will go back and refocus on the child. So the AI servo allows you to refocus on the subject constantly while you're holding the camera or the subject is moving or you're moving. So we want to stay set in AI servo or servo, and that's where you all should be on the back of the camera right now, correct?
Yes.
Everybody's there? Okay, so this is where our focus is set. And be sure that you get your little square because you've got lots and lots of squares to choose from. Joshua, you've got 9 of them that you can choose from, but everybody else has got 64 squares that they can choose from. So be sure that you've got your focus point set on a solid object on your subject. Usually on a human, by the way, it is the eyes, a human or an animal. So we would focus on the eyes. And then you all have got a rapid release. So you've got either the 3 pieces of paper, you see that? It should be right next to your servo, right? So you've got a 3 pieces of paper or 3 pieces of paper with an H. Now push the Q button and move to that icon. And are you on the 3 pieces of paper?
That's rapid release. Hold on.
That's rapid release.
Next to servo, I got something else. No, let me go. Silent single shooting, no. Partial metering, no.
You should be right on these 3 pieces of paper, Arandira. So if it's a 1 square, that means you're on 1 shot. And then if you're on that, push the Q button and change to the 3 pieces of paper. Everybody on 3 pieces of paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am now.
The 3 pieces of paper allows you, and you don't even worry about balancing your light meter, just push your shutter button down and just hold it. And you'll see it's continuous shooting. Just don't worry about balancing your light meter. Just push your shutter and you'll notice that it just goes click, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where I leave my camera most of the time. I get used to the feel of 1 click at a time with my finger. But then if something suddenly happens and I want to make sure that I get the expression of the kid or the expression on the bird or whatever it might be, then I'll just hold my button down and then it'll keep firing. This is all based on your shutter speed. So if you are at a 60th of a second shutter speed, put your shutter speed to 60 for me, please. Rotate your dial. Just don't balance your light meter. Just go to 60 on your shutter, right? Okay, and Morgan, get used to using the dials. Don't punch that back with your finger. Get used to using the dials. Everybody at 60th of a second shutter speed?
Yes.
Okay, now you're on that 3 pieces of paper. So just hold your button down and you'll see it just keeps taking picture after picture. And they're going to be black because it's dark where you are. It's dark at a 60th of a second, but you see how it just keeps firing away? And then if you put your shutter speed to 500, Go ahead and rotate your shutter speed to 500. Get used to looking through the viewfinder, Morgan. Arindira, do the same thing. Get used to looking through the viewfinder. Don't look at the back. So you put your shutter speed to 500 and push your shutter button, and you'll notice that it fires off a lot faster. See that?
It doesn't want to take it. It's so black.
Oh, no, it'll take it.
It'll take it?
Yeah, it'll take it. So it might be focused on some, are you on servo on the back of your camera?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, then it shouldn't refuse you.
Says servo.
Yeah,
3
good.
pieces of paper.
Yep, then it should let you take your picture.
Okay,
Joshua,
It's blinking blue, orange, blue and orange. It's telling me no.
it's telling you no. So
It's
are
telling me
you,
not going to do it.
huh?
It's not taking it.
Okay, and so what's happening is based on how you have your camera focus set, Carol, set it to one little focus point instead of eye or something like that.
sorry,
Here.
Miss Kathy, what's the shutter speed that you want me to set up? The
500th,
500.
right, 500th of a second. You're not bouncing your light meter. Now it should let you take it, Carol, right?
No, ma'am.
No, it's refusing you.
Yes. it's
Isn't that
blinking.
interesting?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's interesting because it might be how that RP is designed, that if it doesn't think you're in focus or if it can't focus, then it'll refuse you. So just to test my thought, on your lens, turn off your autofocus. Only Carol, please. On your lens, turn off your autofocus.
I have focus or control.
Yeah, I want you to turn off your autofocus.
So go to control.
No, go to M on your focus button. You have either an AF or an M on your lens.
Okay, I'm lost. I'm not sure
Okay,
what you want me to
okay,
do.
never mind then, never mind.
Okay.
Okay, okay, okay. So everybody, you see how your 3 pieces of paper works, right?
Just give me 1 second. So just let me get there. I don't want to get lost. Aperture, what's the aperture you want me to put
No,
there?
I didn't want you to balance your light meter at all. All I wanted you to do was set your shutter speed on 500. We're not
Okay.
balancing our light meter right now. I'm just showing you how this function works on your camera.
Okay,
Okay, and when you hold your button down, it just takes picture after picture, correct? Joshua and Morgan, correct?
got it. Yes.
But mine's still pretty slow.
You're at 500th of a second? Shutter speed? No, the meter's not balanced. You're just at 500th of a second.
It's good.
It's good? Okay. 1
I
second.
think mine will work up to 1/200. And then it quits working. Tells me no.
Do you have your flash on?
I don't have a flash.
Okay, so you've got something set in your camera, Carol.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You've got a block somewhere in your camera. You're going to have to go find that in your menu settings.
Yes.
Okay. And then one individual focus point. Remember that if you go over there and you punch that little box with the 9 squares in it, the 9 little dots in it, that allows you to move your focus points around. And then you move it around with either your back dial, your front dial, or Arindira, you have a toggle on the back of your camera that you can move it around on. So those are your individual focus points. If you set a cluster, the camera is finding one point to focus on, but it chooses. So if you want to make sure that you get your focus point on the eyes of the subject or on right on the Christmas present, like Morgan was showing us, then make sure you use individual focus points as opposed to clusters. Because if you use a cluster, the camera finds something to focus on and then it fires, or then it lets you fire from there. So just be aware that if you are using any of your clusters, that the camera is deciding where it wants to focus, and you're not in charge of that. So I use clusters, a big cluster of focus points, if I'm photographing a hawk flying overhead. So I want it just to find the hawk overhead, then I'll use, but it's not focused on the eyes, it's just focused on anything.
I have a question. If we're on a wedding session, which one is the best one we can use to, because you focus a lot of things when you are doing a session. What's your main focus, or what's setting for that?
The eyes of the bride, always.
Always, thank you.
Always. If it's the mother of the bride in the photo, then it is the eyes of the mother. If mother's happy, everybody's happy. Okay. So if it's the mother of the groom, you focus on the eyes of the mother of the groom. So you always focus on the eyes. If you're doing human photography, it's always the eyes.
Okay, now if this is a group, like
If it's a group, you focus on the most important female in the group. That's where your focus point is. There's only one focus point. And even if you've set it to a cluster, the camera's only focusing on one place. That's all.
because what I do as normal is like I just try to center something. So I never focus on someone, just try to center the picture.
Right.
So there's no focus. Okay.
Right. And center is boring most of the time. So this is why you want to move your subjects off to the side, and you want to focus on the eyes, and you want to be a little bit more creative. Okay. So anybody have a pop-up flash? Joshua, you have a pop-up flash, right?
Yep.
Anybody else have a pop-up flash on their camera?
I do have one, but I don't know how to pop it up.
You push the lightning bolt button right here. So when you push the lightning bolt button, then that's where you pop up the flash right there.
Lightning button. Which one? Which buttons?
Look where my screen is right there. The lightning bolt button right there. Carol and Morgan, 430 EX3 is the flash that you'll want to buy for your camera. It's a very simple. It's a very simple, easy to use flash. The Canon 430 EX3. If you can find a 430 EX2, it's a lot easier to use than the 430 EX3. And the 430 EX is just a small little flash, not very big, very powerful, and works really, really well. And then come back and I'll show you how to use flash. But just for right now, just kind of keep this in mind. Did you find your flash, Erin dear? She froze. I can't see her screen. Okay, so the flash and why you want to use the flash is if you'll look at this subject, you see that there's a really dark shadow right down here. There's a really crisp shadow. So that tells you that there was probably a very crisp shadow also on her face. So by using the flash, I can get rid of that shadow on her face and light up her face so that you don't see that shadow on her face. Also, notice that we don't see the flash. So a good flash photograph is we should not be able to see the flash. So Joshua, you're the only one with a flash on your camera. Did you pop it up for me?
I couldn't just get my, I got it with my
There you go.
Okay, you popped it up. Arindira, your flash is a lightning bolt button right over on the side of the front of the camera. And Joshua, I'm just going to keep moving with you so that we can demo this. If you would, Joshua, balance your light meter and point your camera at something in the room with your flash popped up. Use 5.6 if you would.
Miss Kathy, I don't see it.
It should be someplace on that front of the camera, Arindira. It's a little lightning bolt button.
There you go.
Okay, and Joshua, look.
Oh, got it.
Got it? Use 5.6 and now balance the light meter. Look at something in the room, and Morgan and Carol, you all just pay attention because this is how we use flash on the cameras. So Joshua, just point your camera at something in the room, put your eye to the viewfinder, and now make sure your light meter is balanced. So use like a figurine or something like that, little statue or something like that, someplace in your room.
Okay.
Okay. And then balance your light meter and then click your shutter, and the flash, these flashes are called ETTNL flashes, electronic through the lens metering flash. And if you balance your light meter and then use the flash, you should notice that the flash lights the subject up like it lit up this young lady, but it doesn't overpower the subject. Correct, Joshua?
Correct.
Yay, very good. Did it work, Arundira?
Yes.
Good. So the same thing, Carolyn Morgan, when you all put the 430 EX3 or 2 on top of your camera, and then you set it to ETTNL, and you balance your light meter, your flash now goes out to the subject, sends light to wherever you focused, and then turns off. So by setting your flash on ETTNL or Joshua and Arundira using your pop-up flash, then you can tell the flash, go out to my focus point and then turn off. So the ETTNL flash doesn't overpower the subject. It just goes out, kisses the subject and turns off. So this is how we want to do on our flash photography. So with this little guy at the wedding, I'm focused on his eyes. I'm using a flash, but you can't tell I've used a flash. And you notice also that I have positioned him against the lighted background. So during this holiday season, we have a lot of lights in the background and around restaurants now and public gathering spaces. We have a lot of these outdoor light displays now. Position your subject up against those outdoor lights, balance your light meter, pop your flash up, or to use your top mounted flash on ETTNL. And now you're telling that flash, go out and hit my subject and turn off. So the only reason that we know that I've used a flash is one of these tiny lights in his eyes is just a little tiny light coming from the flash. So that's the only way you can tell that I've used a flash. So the pop-up flashes and the top mounted flashes are designed to be photographed, or the pop-up flash is programmed for ETTNL. You can't do anything else, but your top mounted flashes, we want to set ETTNL on those. And once again, the best flash for you all to buy is the 430 EX 2 or 3. If you can get a 2, it's easier for me to use. The 3 is a little too complicated. The 3 will make latte for you if you want it to. So it's just way too complicated in some cases. And then if you ever want to photograph, say in your house or something like that, and you don't have enough light, but you still want to stop the subject. So this is a civet cat in Africa, and it's a mongoose. It's not a cat, it's a mongoose. And it comes out at night from the rafters in this restaurant and hotel where we stay, and it eats all the bugs out of the rafters and out of the thatch in the roof. So it's a cool animal. You want to be able to photograph it. So this is where I simply put my shutter on 60th of a second shutter speed, because remember 60 stops living creatures. Remember that? 60th of a second shutter speed. I don't care whether the light meter balances or not. And then I use the flash, that pop-up flash or the top mounted flash. And now when I focus on the civet cat, then the flash knows how far to send light. And then the shutter opens to stop the subject, turns off, flash fires, flash turns off. Everything happens in that 60th of a second. So Joshua and Arundira, since you all have your flash pops up right now, put your shutter on 60th of a second.
60?
60. Mm-hmm. You're not going to balance the light meter.
Okay,
And now point your camera at that same little whatever you photographed right before. So that same little figurine or statue or whatever you photographed before. And now you'll notice that your background is a bit darker than the previous photo. So the previous photo, when you balance the light meter, the background was okay. And if you forced the flash photograph at 60th of a second, you'll notice that the background is a little bit darker, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Joshua, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good, good, good. So in the event during this whole, all these holidays that we've got coming up, you want to photograph a kid or a dog or a cat in the house, and we've got a lighted background, say like the Christmas tree, or we're out on a lighted street display like this, shutter speed 60th of a second, use the flash, don't worry about balancing the light meter. And now the flash goes out and hits your subject, and then the shutter closes. And if you've lit up the background, like the lighted display here, then this gives you a chance to have some background behind the subject, but yet the flash is taking care of your subject. And then how did I get those lights in the background blurred?
Small f-stop.
You got it. Absolutely right. Got it. So this just tells you that I was using 60th of a second, had the camera set on 4.5 or 5.6. The light meter's not balanced, but I've got the flash turned on. Flash is on ETTNL. If you've got the top mounted flash, pop-up flash, it does this automatically. And now shutter opens, flash goes, hits the subject, flash turns off, shutter closes, all over with. We got our photo. Okay. So try this and see how it works, because it's a great way to use your flash and take pictures of people outside at night or things outside at night. Your top mounted flashes, the 430s, that has a rotating head on it. So we can move the head to the side, we can move the head to the side, we can move the head up and balance off the ceiling, come back, and I'll show you how to do that in flash photography. But for this photo, I focused on the dog over on the side. So that means I'm using one focus point over to the side of my frame, and I put that focus point right on the dog's head. And then I took the flash and twisted it so that it's facing toward the dog. Now, since that flash head rotates on the 430 EX2s or 3s, since it rotates, I can flash the subject off to the side or off to the other side if I put my focus point there. But by putting my focus point right over here on the dog, then that tells the flash, because I've rotated the flash, go hit the dog. A nice thing about flash sometimes is you get unexpected. So all the metallic paint in the Cadillac art display up in Amarillo, all the metallic paint also was lit up by the flash. So sometimes we get some neat little spillovers from the flash. So it's nice to use that flash and learn how to use the flash. So come back and I'll teach you how to use it. But for now, just playing around over the next month or so, use your ETTNL setting if you buy a top mounted flash. And then if you're using your pop-up flash, it's automatically in TTNL. So this is what's called a reflector. This is a way we can add light also. And Arindira, you're talking about photographing brides or photographing, humans. This is a very beautiful light source. So anybody own a reflector?
Mhm.
I don't, because I don't know which one is the best one to
Okay,
use.
I'll show you in just a second. Morgan, you have one?
I do. Uh-huh.
You do? Okay, good. In your homework, I'm going to tell you to just take a piece of cardboard and cover it with aluminum foil, because you can practice this way. Or the shiny windshield screen that you put in your car, you can do this as well. But for this lady, we positioned the reflector right down here in the lower left underneath her face. And there's a window over here in the upper right. So that reflector is catching the light on that silver reflected surface, and it's bouncing it back up on her face. So we're putting that light right up here on her face and on her hair. A reflector, this is the one that I want you to use. It's a 5-in-1 reflector. Silver on one side, gold on the other side. You don't have to use this Impact brand. You can order any of them that are on Amazon. They cost about $29. Order the one that's 24 inches wide, not the one that's 8 inches. Order the one that's 24 inches wide. You twist it and it folds up into a little round case. Is this what you have, Morgan?
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Good. So we use the silver if somebody has a more pink complexion. We use the gold if somebody has a more olive complexion. So if we were doing this in nature, we use the silver if we're reflecting up on a blue flower, but the gold if we're reflecting on a yellow flower. So that's the beautiful thing about having the silver and the gold reflecting surfaces, is we can change based on the complexion of the subject or based on the color of the subject. This diffusion panel right here, the center of it, if we take the case off, the center of it, this is if we want to put it between our subject and the sun to block the harsh sunlight hitting our subject, like a flower or a human.
I
But
have
the
a question.
yes.
When I'm taking pictures outside and it's a lot of sun, so that can help me because, you know, people, they're closing their eyes because of the sun.
That's not going to help you. You're just going to have to instruct people, you position them so that the sun's not shining so much in their face,
Okay.
so they can open their eyes. So this young lady, you see that here's the sunlight, because as the photo shoot is progressing, the day's just getting, the shadows are getting harsher and harsher and harsher. And so you see what intense shadows we've got on her face and her dress. In the right-hand photo, I've positioned the reflector off to right over in here, so you can't see it. It's just leaning up against a little wall. And now the light is reflecting back up on her face and her dress. So you see what a big difference that reflector makes.
So this is the clear color.
Pardon?
This is the clear color.
This is the silver color.
Oh, silver. Okay.
Yeah, this is the silver.
What's the position that's on the side or that's on the front? How
It's see where my cursor is?
Uh-huh.
See, it's right over here behind her off to the side, so you can't see it. So
Okay.
I'm just, you have to just move your reflector around. And I tell you, when it hits somebody in the face, it's bright, especially on a sunshiny day. And so you have to not blind people with it. But when you see it with your eye, then you know that the reflector is positioned where you need it to be. It's a wonderful gadget for human photography because it doesn't accentuate wrinkles and lines. It's a wonderful gadget for macro and flowers because it just gives you a real soft light. And so the reflector is a nice gadget to have. Play around with cardboard covered with aluminum foil. And then if you like it, then go ahead and order you one from Amazon. You just throw it in your camera bag and you use it when you need it because it just folds up nice and small and flat.
Okay.
So questions on reflectors before I leave that?
What about white?
The solid white, that's the diffuser. And you put that between your subject and the sun to cut that harsh light on their face.
Okay.
And go ahead.
These are only for outside or can be for inside pictures as well?
It can be inside, but it just depends on whether you can see it. When you do the reflector, if you can't see it with your eyes, then it's not doing you any good. But if you can see it when you move it around on your subject, then you'll be able to tell whether you can work with it or not. And it's in your homework assignment number 2, where you play around with the reflector. Morgan, have you played with it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
And does
I've
it
done
work?
it inside and outside.
Okay. It's just a neat gadget, isn't it?
Yeah, and it helps a lot. I mean, it can really change some of your photos as well.
Mhm. Very much, because it's a very soft light, but
Yeah.
it can be pretty intense, especially if you're outside with it.
Yeah, especially if you're like in a shaded area with like trees
Mhm.
and stuff, it can
Mhm.
definitely pull some extra light in that you do need.
Yes. And I use it up here in the studio to reflect the window light back on the subject. So the window light comes in from one side and then the reflector on the other side to reflect the window light back on the subject to play with the lighting. So it's a neat gadget to have. Very neat gadget. It's easy to use. Okay, there we go. So there's another thing in photography that you need to understand, and this is called flat to the film plane. And this comes into play for macro. And Joshua, you did this on your little action figure without even thinking about it. But flat to the film plane, our depth of field is absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. So if this is the back of your camera, your depth of field is absolutely parallel to the back of your camera. So if you tilt your camera like this, your depth of field goes like this. And if you tilt your camera like this, your depth of field goes like this. So if I want to show my viewer this whole row of water drops on this calla lily, then I have to get my camera absolutely parallel to that calla lily. So your depth of field is a flat plane parallel to the back of your camera. So if we tilt our camera up, then our depth of field goes up. If we tilt our camera down, then our depth of field goes down. So if you understand that and you're photographing something like this owl-eye butterfly, then you know that I need to keep my camera absolutely parallel to the stick and the antennas and the wings of the butterfly so that I can make sure that I'm maximizing my depth of field. And it's really illustrated here in this caiman photograph. This is a caiman and I'm using f8. So, that's a fairly fat depth of field, f8. But notice when I focus on his nose, then my depth of field goes down about the middle of his snout. See that? But if I pull the boat up directly parallel to the caiman and continue to use f8, now I get the whole caiman in focus because I'm doing my flat to the film plane. So macro photography, something like this caiman, this is where you have to understand that your depth of field is a flat parallel plane, absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. So if you tilt the camera, your depth of field also tilts right along with it. So keeping that camera absolutely parallel to your subject. Play around with that in your homework assignment as well. And then this is the tripod that I recommend you buy. This is a MePhoto Globetrotter classic carbon fiber. And this, by the way, is 4 legs. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4 legs on it. And the MePhoto Globetrotter classic carbon fiber tripod costs $319. You can buy it at Best Buy. You can buy it from Amazon. This is the absolute best tripod I have ever used. And I used to use very, very heavy, very expensive tripods. And about probably 10 years now, the MePhoto people contacted me and asked me if I would try this. And I just told them, I'm a professional. I only use big, heavy tripods. And they sent it to me. And my big, heavy tripod now lives in the back of my car and never gets used. Okay. And it costs like nearly $1,000. So this is $319. It folds up when you fold it all the way up to 1.5 feet long. And when you extend all of the legs, don't extend the center column because that's the weakest part. But when you extend all of the legs and put the camera on top of the ball head, then it stretches to about 5'6". And so this is really, the only tripod that you need. What I love so much about this tripod is it comes with everything you need. It comes with legs that'll fold out so that you can go flat to the ground if you want to. It comes with a ball head, and as photographers, we use ball heads. We don't use the heads with the 3 little handles on them. Those are for video. It comes with the gold standard of plates, and these are called Arca Swiss plates. And you Allen wrench them onto the bottom of your camera and you leave them. You don't take them off. So you buy several, you put them on each one of your camera bodies. And any of you all who have a 1 to 400 millimeter lens or a 1 to 500 millimeter lens or a big long lens for wildlife, you put one of these on the base plate of your lens as well. And then you can put your plate right on with that big lens right in the middle of the tripod and it balances it out. Beautiful thing too, this MePhoto Globetrotter, I should have bought stock in this company before I started selling them to all of you all. It comes in all kinds of different colors. So where this one has silver accents on it, They have one that has pink accents, one that has red accents, one that has blue accents, one that has gold accents, one that has black accents. Mine has green accents. And for a while, they did one in purple and they did one in yellow also. So you can get them in a variety of different colors, just these little accent pieces. So this is the tripod you should buy. If you have a tripod right now and you hate it or it's not working, it's because it's not a good tripod. And if you love your tripod, then, or if your tripod is good and works right, you'll love your tripod. So you're not complaining about your tripod.
And you said this one's at Best Buy?
You can get it at Best Buy. Yeah, exactly. And make sure you get the Globetrotter Classic Carbon Fiber, because they have road trips and all kinds of other ones. And those are just not what you're looking for. So it's the Globetrotter Classic Carbon Fiber. And you can also order it from Amazon. You can go to the Me Photo site and order it directly from them as well. But it is a really, really good tripod. It weighs 3 pounds. So when I travel, it is the last thing on the top of my suitcase because it only weighs 3 pounds. TSA opens it up, they see what it is, they can close my suitcase back up. So very, very nice light tripod, and it's kind of indestructible. Questions? Nope. Okay. And then lenses. Lenses we buy because we need them. And you all heard me say this in first class. Lens is a tool. You buy a lens because you need it. You need it for a specific purpose. You don't buy a lens because somebody on Instagram says that this is the lens they use. You buy a lens because you need it. So for all of you all, the R's, Carol, the RP, that's a full sensor camera, isn't it?
Yes, full
Yes,
frame.
okay. Yeah,
Yes.
full frame. Yeah,
Which
okay.
I don't know what that means, but yes.
What
it's a
that
full frame.
means is that the sensor is the same size as a 35mm piece of film. So it just means that your sensor is large. Joshua, in your camera, your sensor is 1.6 the size of a 35mm piece of film. So you're what's called a cropped sensor. Arendira, on that D90, that's a crop sensor camera, but on your 5D, that's a full sensor camera. So Morgan and Carol, you all have full sensor cameras, and Joshua, yours is a crop sensor, and then Arendira, you're switched between the two of them. So when you want to photograph something grand like this, you are going to use what's called a super wide angle lens. So this would be for Carol and Morgan and the 5D. This would be your 16 to 35mm lens, or your 15 to 35mm lens, or your 14 to 35mm lens. This has such a wide field of view that this is what you would see if you took your head and moved it like this and up and down. So that field of view that you have, that would be your 16, 15, or 14. Joshua, that's your 10 on your camera. So, and the same thing, Arendira, on that 10mm, or excuse me, on the D90, that would be your 10mm as well. You use this lens for grand landscapes. You use this lens when you want to show the viewer all of the scene, everything in the scene. And if you tilt it up, it exaggerates the sky and makes the sky appear even more dramatic. So like this storm clouds here. If you tilt it down, then you can make the foreground appear more dramatic. So this is your landscape lens. This is your grand landscape lens. So Joshua, it would be your 10 to 22mm lens, or your
What's mine again?
20. On the D90 or the Mark IV or the Mark V?
The D90.
On the D90, same thing as Joshua. I just said it would be your 10 to 22. Or on your 5D, Carol or Morgan, it would be your 16 to 35, your 14 to 35, or your 15 to 35, depending on what lens you're buying. So this is your grand landscape lens. And then I want to show you what each one of your lenses do. This is a short little video of every lens I could get my hand on one day. So there's 500 millimeter, but if I go to 10, you notice how far off that house was. And then it keep going, it'll keep going. Yeah, keep going. It jammed on me. There you go. Here, it's keeping up. There we go. So you see, once I get to 500 millimeters, you can see that house way off in the distance. It'll go again. It's got to catch up with me. There we go. But when I go to those wide angle lenses, you can't see it at all. So understand that a wide angle lens, like that 10 to 22, Joshua, or the 16 to 35, that is not designed for photographing people because it's going to make people appear wider, but it's designed for landscapes and it's designed for street scenes at night or something like that. So that's what that lens is used for. That 24 to 105 millimeter lens, Morgan, Morgan, you've got this, don't you? 24 to 105. Didn't I see that?
Yeah, that's what I have. And then I have an
Yeah.
85 and a 35.
Okay, so that 24 to 105, Irindira, this would be on your 5D. Carol, this would be on your camera. This is a good all-purpose lens used for all
Which one
kinds
is
of
it? I'm
stuff.
sorry.
24 to 105. And that's for your 5D. Joshua and Irindira, if you put this on your D90, this would be your 15 to 85. So that 15 to 85 is a little better than your 18 you've got right now. It's a better quality lens. And it's a good general purpose all around walk around lens.
You say 1835? Okay, for the D90.
No, Irindira, 15 to 35 for your D90.
15 to 35.
Yeah, you notice how I have to use different numbers depending on what size sensor you have for your camera. And
Okay.
Irindira, you're working on 2 different size sensors. So that means you're going to have 2 lens sets unless you decide unless you decide not to keep that 90, because that means you're using 2 different lenses, right?
Yes, I have 2 different ones.
Yeah, you have the ones with the white dots. Joshua, you notice how your lens has a white dot on it? And then
Yes.
everybody else, you all have red dots. So the white dots are for the crop sensor lenses and the red dots are for the full sensor lenses. So different lenses for different type of cameras. But I want to show you what's called bokeh on your lenses. And this is something that you want to test on your lenses. And this is something that you want to look for when you're buying lenses. So this is your 18 to 55. Joshua, you've got this lens, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, this is your 18 to 55 millimeter lens. This just came with Joshua's camera. So it was in the box when he bought the camera. I zoomed to 55 millimeters and I put it at f4 and I focused as close as I could to the little Christmas ornament. And the view out my window of my office, this is what it looks like. So this blown out blurry background, this is called the lens's bokeh. So this is how we can blow the backgrounds out, or what the blurriness of the background looks like. You notice that I can see the screen of the windows right there, but you see everything else is kind of just nice and blurry. So that's called the bokeh. But if I go to the 50 millimeter lens, Morgan, I think you have this lens, and Irindira, you mentioned that you have this lens as well. The 50 millimeter lens, this is a studio lens. So it doesn't have any zoom on it. You physically have to walk up and walk back to get your subject composed like you want them to. This is a studio lens, but this is a lens that is known for its beautiful bokeh. And so I put it at f4, and now you see what the background looks like with the 50 millimeter lens. That's what it looks like with the 18 millimeter 55 lens. So you see now you're getting your background just a bit softer. But then this is the 70 to 200. This is one of the professional level lenses that Canon produces. And at f4, now notice how blurry my background is. And notice that you cannot see any definition back there at all. So the higher your lenses are in value, the more expensive they are, usually the better the background is on those. And this is just one of those reasons why you buy certain lenses over certain other lenses. So test each one of your lenses, do exactly the same thing that I just did. Put up, nice little subject, big background behind it, maybe all the way out the window like I did. Balance the light meter and then change your f-stops and see what kind of bokeh your lens has. That 50 millimeter, by the way, that I mentioned before, I bought this just simply because everybody was raving about it a couple of years ago. It's a lens we used to use when I first started doing photography in the 70s, and we kind of got away from it because we had other lenses that had more options. And this one sits in my box more than any other lens I own. So I'm not going to tell you it's one of my favorite lenses. If I was a studio photographer, I might use it more, but for typical outdoor, just walking around photography, it's not wide enough for me, and it doesn't have enough zoom. And to get close to anything, I have to walk up to it, and to back up, I have to walk back. So you have to zoom with your feet. So it's one of the reasons I don't use it very much. Same thing with my 85. I don't use that one very much as well. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about lenses. Questions on lenses?
It's hard. I've been getting different lenses. I have now I'm using the 18 135, and I have the 55 250.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I don't know what's the difference, to be honest with you. It's like, I didn't know.
The 18 is more wide angle, and 135 is kind of medium telephoto. And then the 70 to 200, that's your lens for dogs at the dog park, kids at the playground, dragonflies, butterflies, flowers. It's a telephoto lens. So it's for bringing something that's far away up closer. And if you ever go shopping for camera equipment, lenses, please feel free to ask me ahead of time. If I'm around, I will answer you on equipment questions. So if you want to know whether this lens is better than this lens or this lens or this lens, I would rather see you buy good first instead of wasting your money and having to rebuy.
Exactly.
And if you ever buy something or get gifted something, because people give you equipment periodically when they know you're a photographer, remember that you can always sell equipment. So I'm a big believer in selling equipment before it becomes obsolete, because somebody out there will buy that piece of equipment. So I sell Houston Camera Exchange. Sometimes I sell on eBay. If you ever want to buy used lenses, you could buy them from Houston Camera Exchange. They have a 30-day guarantee, and they're good people. Or Carol said she bought her camera from B&H in New York, and the same thing, B&H are good people as well. So realize that there's used equipment out there on the market. And then if you ever have equipment that you're not using, remember that somebody out there will use it. So if you want to put it on the market, somebody will buy it. I hate to see camera equipment sit on the shelf and not get used. Okay, questions for me before I leave you all?
I had a question about birds. I have the kit lens, the 24 through 105 millimeter. I was out taking pictures yesterday, saw a bird come up, land 15 feet away, and the bird is tiny. I didn't get the bird at all.
Oh yeah.
So if I'm looking to get birds,
yes,
which lens would you recommend?
The best would be the Canon RP 100 to 500. And that's for your new R camera. So those of you using Rs, this is an RP lens. So it's the 100 to 500. And that 500 millimeter is great for birds. If you want to add a 1.4x extender, that just magnifies the lens a little bit more. And that puts you at 700 millimeters. And that's what I use for my bird photography.
And so, that you buy that separate?
Yeah, they're two separate things. One of them is the 100 to 500 millimeter lens. And then the 1.4x extender is just puts on the back of that lens and just adds more magnification.
And what does R stand for?
The R is that model of camera that you all are using, that you and Morgan are using. So these are the RPs and the Rs. This is what Nikon is calling their mirrorless. Canon is calling their mirrorless. Nikon calls it Zs. So they're all the Z lenses. So ours are now Rs. And then we have to buy lenses specially for it. Carol, you have an adapter on your camera? No,
I did not buy the adapter. No, I don't have an adapter because I don't
Okay.
have any other lenses.
good. Then don't use an adapter. Good, good,
Right.
good. Yeah. Yeah. Because you can use an adapter and put old lenses on the RP, but I think we just need to go on with with the new lenses because they have so
Right.
many cool technologies in them.
Right.
Questions?
What about the 35 macro for newborn photography? What are your thoughts?
I would never use it. And Morgan, I see people using it all the time. And why I wouldn't use it is that means you are physically, especially newborns, you are physically moving yourself in and out. And, you know, all the lenses, all the professional lenses from Canon focus to 9 inches. So your 24 to 105 that you've got right now focuses exactly the same distance, but you don't have to get in that baby's face and you don't have to breathe on that baby. So for me, I would use, because you've got a 24 to 105, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I would use your 24 to 105. I mean, I think that a lot of these fixed lenses are darlings on the Instagrams. But from a photographer's point of view, I would much rather have that zoom in my hand, because if I'm going to cast a shadow on that baby, or right now with COVID, we don't want to get that close to that baby.
Right.
I would much rather do that with my 24 to 105 than with the 35. And then the 35, you have to take it on and off, put your 50 on, take it on and off, put your 85 on, take it on and off. You're constantly changing lenses.
Right.
Where if you think about it, that 24 to 105 has everything that the 35, 50, and 85 have.
Guess that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it's the field of view. And to me, it's just a lot more versatile lens to use that one lens.
Okay.
That lens also is f4, which you wouldn't want to go down any narrower than that, because that 35 or that 50 or that 85, if you do go down to that 1.4, looks great if you hold the picture way off. But if you look at it up close, the baby's blurred.
Okay.
So that f4 is perfect what you need. Yeah.
Okay.
What about
Resist.
What about
Question.
the D90s, Kathy, for babies?
I
Which
think
one will be a
the
good
ca-
lens for that?
the camera is great, but then the same thing, that Arandira, the same lens is your 15 to 85. And that's
15.
the equivalent of your 24 to 105 on a full sensor camera. So the same thing, your 15 to 85 does the same thing. And then just make sure that your background is 8, 10, 15, 20 feet away. You want that background to be as far away as possible.
That's my thing. If I go far away, the baby's far away. So in order for me to be far away and the baby be, look close on the picture.
No, the subject is close to you. The background is far away. So you are
Okay.
close to the subject, but the background is 8, 10, 15 feet away.
Okay.
So you're still close to your subject.
Okay.
Okay, so classes coming up. I'm starting to put my January, February, March classes coming on the calendar. So I hope to see you all in another class coming up soon.
What is Lightroom?
Lightroom is where you process your pictures. So Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, this is the Adobe program where you process your pictures. So that intro to Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, I teach that in January, and this teaches you how to use the program.
And when is that, Kathy?
I just put it on my January calendar. I can't remember which day it is right now, but it's on my January calendar.
Okay, because I didn't see it the last time I looked, so I'll look again.
Yeah, I just updated my classes on Friday.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And then I'll put some more on. I'll do that class once a month because I want all you new people to photography to learn how to use the software programs.
Okay.
And I show you 2 different methods. So you choose the one that fits your brain the most.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I've got about 23 something different classes that I teach. So check back because I'll add them regularly. If there's a class you want, then just tell me and then add that. If you want to travel with me, I've still got openings on my Costa Rica trip in February. I've got one opening on the Alaska whales, and then the Romania birds, the Danube Delta for bird migration in Europe is coming up in May. Weekend workshops, I've got one opening for a male on the January Hill Country Bird Photography Workshop. The March workshop for early migrants, I have openings for any sex, it doesn't matter. And then all of those are on my website also. So weekend workshop. Uh-huh.
I was looking at the prices on the trips. That includes the flights and everything, or that's
No.
separate?
You have to pay for your flights, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody has different ways of paying for their flights. Yeah.
Okay.
But we usually on those trips tell you what flight I'm on in the event that you want to travel over with other people. So you don't want to travel by yourself.
Okay.
Okay. If you all have any questions when you're working through your second homework assignment, feel free to email me and ask me. Otherwise, I hope to see you all in another class one day soon. Arindira, I see you tonight in the Holiday Lights photography in the Woodlands, and everybody else, it has been a pleasure. I'll share the recording with you when it's finished. And I hope to see you another day in another class one day soon. Okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Ms. Kat.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.